Okay, so what I wanted to really talk here is the best way to handle errors in Next.js. See, what I have here is a pretty basic Next app where I have a route inside slash API slash errors. Sorry, my bad, not errors. Slash API will come into errors. That's the whole point of this video. Okay, so we have a API endpoint in slash API slash user. So what I have inside this route file is I'm getting the username and the email from the request, and I'm doing a bunch of check if the username and the email is provided, if the username is valid length, if yes, I have written some constant variables like not found, is banned, or username not available. But eventually, in a production environment, these values will be coming from the database itself. So I will obviously not setting up a database for this. But yeah, you can imagine that these values are coming from the database directly, and we are getting it from there. Now, all these checks are ensuring us that we do not want to proceed after this. Right, we want to return an error response at this point. So when we can confirm that username or email is not provided, okay, sorry, my headphone is a bit glitching. It's getting turned off by itself. I don't know why. However, so what we are doing is we're checking if email or username is not provided. Then we are sending a NextJS response, NextJS response.json with a payload and a status code of 400, with a error message and a status code of 400. When we see that username length is not valid, then we are doing the same thing, the same structure, almost the same thing. It's only the error message is different. When you see that the user not found, what we're doing is doing the same thing again, but with a different error message. When you see that the user is already banned, then we are again doing the same thing, but again with a different error message. Same goes for here as well. Now, yeah, with the different error message and the different status code. Now, what the problem is, first thing is we can see that we are repeating the same structure again and again. Right, we're repeating that. The second problem I usually have faced is whenever I have to debug, I need to, let's say I need to go inside a specific if statement above the return statement, of the return I'm doing. Before that, I have to do a console log or something, or anything that I wanna log into while debugging things. So it's not so much constant that where all the errors are falling. So what should be a good approach in this situation? What we can do here is we can create a error. We can create an error directory just like this, and inside this error directory we can create an exception file. What this exception file will have? It will just export a class named as exception. Now, what this exception class will do, it will extend the class we get from Node.js, the error class. And inside this class, what we'll do, we will use the message that we get from the error class. We'll use that, but besides that, we will add another new property, which is code, just like this. Declaring a code to declare the new property that is done inside the constructor. We are setting it in this exception class. So what this will help us in, after that we usually use the error class just like this. Throw new error and the message. This is an error, right? But for this exception, or with this exception class, what we can do, we can do the pretty much same thing, exceptions, but we can pass a status code as well. We can pass a code as well, right? Now, I guess you can assume where I'm going. What I'll do, I will just replace all this next response.json code with this one. Sorry. Throw new exception and yep. Email or username is required. Same goes for here. Throw new exceptions. This same. Okay. So what I did here is I replaced all the error messages or the error returns with this custom class that I just built, with the custom exception class. Now, what it will do, if we throw errors inside the try block, we know that it falls back inside this inside this catch block. So we can catch all these errors inside here. But what we have here is like this. Maybe like this, okay? What we have here is like this. We're sending a error response just with a default message as something went wrong. Now, if we want to cover this exceptions as well, or this errors as well, see what these errors are. These are manual errors. These are not some unexpected errors that have occurred in our server. These are expected errors, I would like to call them, that we are sending as the developers because the user have sent some wrong request to our servers, right? We are manually sending them. So these are kind of expected errors. That's why we want to send some really user-friendly messages with the corresponding status code. But if something goes wrong, something unexpected error happens in our server or something, then we obviously do not want those error messages with buzzwords like the XYZ error happened in something that 35 or 121 line. We do not want those messages to end up to the end user's screen as an error message. What do we want on that case? For them to say is something like this: something went wrong. You do not have to worry about that. But if the username is not available that they sent to the request, we do not want them on that case to see that something went wrong. We want them to say username is not available, obviously. That's why we did all this. Now, we have to catch all these exception messages inside this catch block. So what we can do is we can do it if check like this. My Copilot is so much clever. It got trained with my code. I really use this approach. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking if the error that we are getting from the catch function, if this error is an instance of the exception class that we just built. If it is, then send the message that we get from here as the message to the response, and the status code should be the code that you are getting from the exception or the error itself. If the error is not an instance of the exception class, then we again fall back to the previous thing. Now we can simplify it a bit more. What we can do is, instead of writing to next response.json, we can create a variable. Let message equal, come on, so it's something went wrong. Yep. And let status equal 500. And instead of returning the actual response, we can just update these variables inside this if statement. And at the very end, we will just send this message variable and the status variable in the response. See, now it's so much more simplified, right? Now, that's actually the whole thing that I wanted to mention in this video. Now, on top of that, which is a bit kind of extra that I want to mention is, see, when the messages or the errors are like this, that username is not available or a user is banned, or my bad, the used email is banned. The used email is banned. Okay. So when the errors are like this, we do not want to log those in our servers. Yeah, we can, but the priority is not so much big. The priority is not so much big if we want to log it or not. Maybe we do not want to log that because the user have done something wrong. We are not really worried about it. We have sent the corresponding message to the user. But if something goes in our server, I had this headset, however. But if something goes wrong in our servers, then we obviously want to log those errors in our servers, right? So what we can do here, see, we are already sending the user that nice message that we are creating by that exception class, but it's like updating the message variable when it's an instance of the exception. But what about when it's not? Okay, when it is not, we only want to log the error because we know in this case that it's not an expected error. It's an unexpected error that we want to debug about. We want to get into. We want to debug this thing. We want to see what's going wrong in our server, right? So this is pretty much it that I wanted to mention. This approach really makes the life easy. At least it worked pretty well in my case. I really like this approach. And you can see this code and like write it, copy it, or if you go in my GitHub, then you will find it in many of the projects that I have did. Not many, I guess. Yeah, not many. I guess the last project that I did from now, named after honest feedback, you can find it there. You can find this approach there. Not all the repositories. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And one important thing that this approach, this idea did not pop from my brain. I should give the proper credit to the actual authors. There's a I don't know if you're familiar or not. There is a Firebase open source alternative named as AppRite. That's a base product, backend as a service product. It's really pretty good product. I've used it so many times. So I got this idea, I got this approach from their code base. So they're the actual OP of this idea. Kudos to them. So yep, that's kind of everything that I wanted to mention in this video. And yep, that's it. Bye.